Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. Brianna's having a little bit of technical difficulties. I want to welcome Mohammad, Nadia, Mazen. If you can turn on your cameras, we can go ahead and get started with our event today. I want to welcome everyone to our first American Arab Heritage Month event. Hi, Nadia. Hi, Mohammad. Good afternoon. Hello, Mazen. Thank you all. I'll go. Brianna, are you okay now? You're still on mute. Okay. I want to welcome everyone to this event. We're looking for an amazing event this afternoon. And I'll let you go. I'll turn it over to Mohammad and let you go ahead and get started.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a great lunch and a bit of good sandwiches with you. It's going to be a nice and sunny day, so I hope you'll enjoy it as much as possible. Introducing myself. So my name is Mohammad Alarja. I'm originally from Palestine. I've been in the US for almost 12 years now. Woohoo, time is counting. I came to the US for school originally. Well, let me tell you a little bit more about myself. So, as I said, from Palestine, I've lived all my life there. And what brought me to Oregon or to the US in general? So, school. I came to study conflict facilitation and organizational change at an institute called Process Work Institute. And after that, I decided to upgrade my knowledge and skills and to getting a PhD in organizational development and change. What made me stay in Oregon? So I met my sweetheart. She's from here. And I guess I'm growing the duck feet slowly with time. And I'm getting used to it and I'm enjoying it. Love the nature of the Northwest and the Pacific rain we get every day. Bless every day to have it. And can't say I find another place sweet like Oregon so far. I might be biased. I enjoy it so much. So I will let and also I work for the ODOT, Oregon Department of Transportation. I manage the Lake Oswego and downtown DMV offices. I've been working with the refugee community since I've done my research in conflict facilitation, helping them integrate it into the Oregon and the US culture and fabric, working with the Lutheran Community Service, with ERCO and other NGOs that work and help support and made refugee feel welcome in Oregon. And from here, I'll move the microphone to my colleagues, Mazen.
Okay. Is the unmute working, I guess? So everybody's hearing. Wonderful. Good afternoon. My name is Mazen, Malik. And I, interestingly enough, also come from Palestine. However, I came to the United States about 40 years ago and been here, been working for the state of Oregon for about close to 30 years, coming the end of this year. When I came to the United States first, I was coming to also go to college, and I started in the College of Engineering. I did some electrical engineering work, and as a young man, I wasn't necessarily looking for job training. I was looking for the truth. So I moved from engineering to physics, thinking that it's going to give me all the answers. When I found out it didn't, I kind of went to mathematics because it's like the root of things that give you answers. So I did that, but then I was still missing stuff in my mind, at least answers and so on. So I also did a degree in sociocultural anthropology. And that would be specifically on the mitigation of change, of cultural change. Later on, I did some graduate work with statistics and ended up my graduate work in economics. And currently I'm an economist as a profession, and I work for the Legislative Revenue Office. This is the Oregon State Legislature, or the legislative branch of government. And previous to that, I worked in ODOT for about 10 years as a chief economist there. So, and I would like to give you greetings, all of you. You know, last Sunday was the Easter, the Orthodox Easter, or the Eastern Easter, Orthodox. So that was the big celebration. And also next Sunday would be the Eid al-Fitr. So greetings to all on all occasions.
Thank you, Malik. And I think now we'll have Nadia Dahab.
Hi, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are enjoying your lunches, and thanks for inviting me to participate in this conversation. My name is Nadia Dahab. My family comes from Tripoli, Libya. I was born in the United States, but my father came to the United States from Tripoli. And I have most family members who still live there. I am the current president of the Arab American Cultural Center of Oregon, which is part of why I think I was invited to participate in this event today. ACO, as we call it, is a nonprofit organization that aims to preserve and protect the heritage of Oregon's very diverse Arab American community. And this past couple of years, we've been expanding our mission and our goals to serve our community in many different ways beyond cultural and heritage preservation. Like I said, was born in the United States. I grew up in Nebraska. I started my career as a civil engineer, practiced civil engineering for a few years, and then decided to go back to school and went to law school here in Oregon, which is what brought me to Oregon. I went down to the University of Oregon in Eugene, and have been practicing law for about a decade. I do civil rights litigation, public rights litigation, some consumer work, and have done a lot of immigration work over the course of my career. It's good to be here. Thank you again.
Thank you, Nadia. Appreciate your time and the work you do. Thank you, Mazen, too. And I just want to welcome everybody. I see the numbers growing. I think people still arriving. So there's a video Brianna prepared for us, I think.
Since the late 19th century, Arab Americans have been an integral part of United States history. Immigrating from regions in Southwest Asia and North Africa, they arrived here, searching for economic opportunities, seeking refuge, or to build a new home, each person with a story of their own. These stories live on through photos, documents, and heirlooms that together tell a larger story of the lived experiences brought to light by the first and only Arab American National Museum.
These artifacts, these objects, they're the stuff of history. Each object can tell us something about the lives of the earliest Arab immigrants or even the most recent ones. By collecting and preserving these objects, we're able to understand and record and document the stories that make up the Arab American community's history and allows us to understand their impact and share them with present and future generations.
The Arab American National Museum is our necessary and compelling storyteller, representing our diverse and rich culture through literature, research, art, and music. Our mission to document, preserve, and present the history and contribution of Arab immigrants and their descendants began in 2005 in Dearborn, the heart of Arab America.
It serves as such an anchor in our community, not just here in Dearborn, but it has such an international reputation. And their collections and what they do to keep the stories alive, to preserve the stories, to preserve that culture is so critical to our society in general.
The museum has drawn tens of thousands of visitors each year from all 50 states and different countries around the world to explore our core galleries and engage with the local community. From Dearborn to Ellis Island and reaching as far as Los Angeles and Houston, the Arab American story has been shared in cities across the nation. Our temporary and traveling exhibitions shine a light on how immigration has shaped the lives of Arab Americans today and how Arab Americans have in turn shaped this country.
The museum gives me a home for my ancestors, a place I can return to again and again to visit and celebrate where and who I come from.
A proud Smithsonian affiliate and accredited by the American Alliance of Museums, the Arab American National Museum educates, engages, and inspires our community to continue expanding the Arab American narrative.
Together, the Arab American National Museum and the Smithsonian are able to tell a more complete American story. Telling this American story through an Arab American lens is so important because it reminds us all what it means to be human and what it means to be a citizen of the United States.
Through youth programs and family-friendly activities, we build a new generation of museum goers, bringing students into our space to learn about their culture and the culture of their peers.
To learn to be the artist I want to be.
To learn that art can be whatever I want it to be.
To learn from and teach each other about our story.
To teach people about beauty and diversity.
The museum has always stood as a national hub for hosting community dialogue, producing and sharing knowledge, and curating thoughtful programming. Today, we continue to foster a community of arts and culture, and we provide a space for us to fully and creatively express ourselves.
Where we can represent ourselves.
To tell my story.
To raise my voice.
At its core, the museum is home to every Arab American across the nation, welcoming people near and far into our doors to experience our unique and incredible story. It is a museum that tells many stories created by us and for us, and carries our legacy forward for generations to come.
Thank you, Brianna, for the video. That was very informative. Appreciate it. And next speaker will be back to Mazen.
Well, thank you. I would like to start this with sharing my screen to go through some slides here to, is it hopefully coming through?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for the confirmation. What I would like to share with you today, just give you a better idea of, and I'm sure many of you probably have seen and known these things, but it is important for us through this event is to give you more of an orientation of what an Arab culture, what's an Arab American, what is and what is not in general, and how these things originate, a little background, a little history, so you would have a better understanding of your friends and neighbors. So let me start first. Where do the Arabs come from? In this map, you would have the colored pieces of land, which designates countries, about 22 nations that are mostly located in North Africa and some in the Asian part. So the middle white body of water, that would be the Red Sea. The Red Sea would separate Asia from Africa. And as you could see, most of the Arab world, this is the 22 countries that we call the Arab world. Of course, Iran here is, and all the other countries in gray are not included in this map. So the Arab world is mostly dominated by the landmass in North Africa. However, what we call it in our Arab lexicon, the Maghrib, or the western part of the Arab world, versus the eastern part. So that's what you would sometimes hear Arabs talk about from the west or the east. Now, in addition, this land mass, by the way, is quite sizable. It's above 5 million square kilometers. Just to give you a context, this is bigger than the United States and Mexico combined, and it's bigger by far. There's about 400 million Arabs that reside in that area. The Arab, basically ethnicity, culture, and Arabic is the anchor of the culture and ethnicity. Arabic language is a Semitic language. It's it's the largest and the most spoken Semitic language. Other Semitic languages that exist are also Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac, Amharian, and other smaller types of languages that still exist with very small population speaking. But the Arab world is basically the source and base and origins of many religions, or mostly the three monotheistic religions of the world. And the Arab world is mostly majority Muslim, although not all are Muslim. And just to give you an idea, what we call the Arab world versus the Arab-speaking nations or Arab-speaking places, there is the lighter shade of green you see on the map here, where it is. These are not necessarily Arab countries, but they are of Arab-speaking populations. So that will give you just an orientation of that, as you see in some in the north or the Horn of Africa, Eritrea, and some in Chad, Niger, and so on. Now, one thing that usually people refer to when they're talking about Arabs are Middle Easterners. And it really doesn't offend Arabs too much that they're Middle Easterners, because a lot of us are. But this is the map of the Middle East, and you could see that it contains most of the eastern part of the Arab world, and also you add to it Egypt, which is quite sizable. However, it also contains the map of Iran, Persia, and Turkey. And although Iran and Turkey are our neighbors and lived there for a long time, and Turkey dominated the Middle East and the Arab world for about 500 years of rule until the First World War, Turks and Persians are not Arabs. That, just to orient people between what's the difference, Middle Easterners versus Arabs. And Middle Easterners is a geographical concept rather than a national heritage and so on. The other thing is, you always find people confuse Arabs and Muslims. Not necessarily a bad thing, but to see that if you have this map, this is how far-reaching the Islamic religion is. It basically has more like 1.5 billion. Today, I think people would say 1.6 billion people. It's about a quarter of the world population. Most of Muslims are not Arabs. So about 80% of Muslims are not Arabs. So Arabs make about less than 20% of the Muslim population. The biggest Muslim nations or majority Muslim nations are Indonesia, 277 million people, Pakistan, 205, Bangladesh, and so on. Turkey and Iran, the one we spoke before about being Middle Eastern locations, about 81 million people each. So also there is big Muslim communities in other countries that are not Muslim majority. And of course, India contains about 190 million Muslims. Of course, any minority in India is a big number, as you would expect. There's about also 200 million in sub-Saharan Africa. And though majority of Arabs are Muslims, not all, as you could see, So one Arab country, which is Lebanon, until very recently was majority Christian country. There's a large Christian communities in Syria, in Egypt. There's about 11, 12 million Coptic Christians in Egypt, and Palestine, also Jordan and Iraq. And those communities are sizable, old and historic, and they have contributed tremendously to the Arab civilization and Arab culture. So once we've established that, then let's see how the Arabs started moving outside the region that we called Arabia, or the Arab world, and outside to the different parts of the world. And the biggest migration started basically in the late 1800s, early 1900s, although it might look like it, but I wasn't alive then, and I wasn't the one emigrating at that time. But a lot of the pressures at that time were coming from, everybody was under the Ottoman Empire, Ottoman rule. The Ottoman Empire had these big conflicts between the Europeans and the Ottomans, and so on. And the Ottomans were under economic pressure and conscription to the army. So people were flooding economic conditions and wars and conscription to armies and so on. And a lot of people started leaving, and of course they left by boat. And a lot of them wanted to make it in America. Now, America at that time was not necessarily the United States for people. The United States was part of America. They meant all the Americas, the South and North America. Now, today, there's about 30 million people or so, some say between 14 or 15 and 30 million people. But the largest population of Arabs outside the Arab world is in Brazil. There's about 9 to 10 million Arabs that live in Brazil and make a huge community. And a lot of them are of Lebanese and Syrian descent. Chile also have a large Palestinian community, and it's probably the largest Palestinian community that exists outside the Arab world. You have Colombia, and Colombia is very colorful. It has a lot of Arab heritage and Arab population. And of course, a lot of them are from the greater Syria, or what we call the Levant or Levantian Arabs, which is the region of Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. And notable with Colombia that it gave us the Colombian Arab American also singer Shakira, as you would probably all have heard before. Now, there are different places. El Salvador is one of them. Mexico has a large Lebanese community. Actress Salma Hayek comes from that heritage. One of the places, as I mentioned, El Salvador contains a large Palestinian community and Lebanese community, Syrian. Interestingly enough, the Arabs have been integrated in the Latin and South American communities, that they became, a lot of them made it to primarily politics and commerce and so on. There is a lot of Arabs who became either in government structure or presidents of different countries. Most notably, El Salvador had so far about 3 Palestinian presidents, or presidents of Palestinian origins. So in this map, you would see where the most concentration of Arabs were. You see, of course, the black is where the Arabs came from, and then you see the different shades. That's how people went into different places in the world. As we said, in Latin and South America, in total is about 11 presidents who are either of Lebanese, Syrian, or Palestinian origins. Now, having all of that, of course, that's the south side of America that Arabs were going to. The Arabs also came to the United States. And that's how in this map you would see the darker shades represent larger population of Arab ancestry. And you would, as you heard in that short documentary film about the Arab American Heritage Museum, Dearborn, Michigan, contains the largest Arab American population. As a matter of fact, as a city, Dearborn is considered the largest Arab city outside the Arab world. There is about 500,000 people who live there. And then you would find people coming in, mostly also New York, Los Angeles, and the California state, or the state of California, contains a large Arab American community. Mostly Los Angeles, San Francisco. Chicago also has, and if anybody goes to Chicago, look up a section of the city that's called Little Palestine. That actually is a place that you could go and have a lot of the good food and the music and the different heritage and different items. So what Arab Americans primarily are, Arab Americans in their demography, heritage, and language do not necessarily represent exactly what the population demographics are in the Arab world. A lot of the Arab Americans, when they came in the first wave of migration or immigration to the United States, that's, remember, the 1800, 1900, or late 1800, early 1900 wave. A lot of them were Christians, and a lot of the Arab Americans that are now exist in these different places are basically Eastern Orthodox, Greek Catholic, Maronites, Coptics, which is mostly the Egyptian Coptics, Assyrians, and Chaldeans. There are Roman Catholics and so on. But Muslims are growing as part of the Arab American population. At a certain time, at the beginning of the 20th century, about 82%, or 8 times out of 10 Arab Americans you would meet were Christians. Now that have changed with the second wave of immigration. The second wave saw a different mix, slightly more. It happened in the 50s and 60s. It was a result of certain political changes and demographic, socio-cultural changes in the Arab world. A lot of revolutions and changes and conflict. The war, the Arab-Israeli war at that time. So you had a lot of immigration also, besides Palestine and Lebanon and Syria, and you started seeing a lot more Egyptians, and it was a mix between Muslims and Christians. However, until that time, the 50s and 60s, still most of Arabs that you would meet in the street, if anybody were alive at that time, would still be a Levantian or an Arab from the greater Syrian area that was a Christian at that time. The third, there was a smaller wave that I have to mention also in the 90s. It came also with the time of the Gulf War, and that's the first Gulf War, and so on. A lot of people moved out, and a lot of them ended up in the United States. The third large wave started in the 2000 to present. Mostly of this wave are refugees and from conflicts in places like Iraq, Syria, a lot of them, also Libya, Somalia, and Morocco. And a lot more, the makeup of this type of migration or immigration at that time was a lot from Muslim majority countries. So we estimate now that different estimates of what the Arab population or the Arab American population in the year 2000, we were talking about 4 million. Today we talk about 6 to 7 million people. Uh, you know, however, the growth of the Arab American community was very, very quick, about 42% in a decade. However, you would still, you know, the profile today of who you would meet if you meet or know someone who's an Arab American. So 1 out of 2 would likely be a Levantian, either Syrian, Lebanese, Palestinian, Jordanian, and so on. And still about 1 in 4, oh, I'm sorry, 1 in 4 would be otherwise. About half or slightly less than half would still be most likely of Christian, of different denominations. In Oregon, we believe there is about 50,000 Arab Americans of different persuasions and so on, and different backgrounds. They, you know, the numbers, we took some of the numbers that came from the US Census. Those numbers are not necessarily precise. They came as part of you know, survey. However, we use them, and it actually makes sense as you split between the percentages, and you would see who've been counted or asked. However, a lot of others who identify themselves as Arabs in general, or other Arabs, or you know, different identification than the ones that the census asked about, were not actually counted in those numbers. So if you look at where the origins of Arab Americans that you would expect, you would find, as I was saying, the Levant area or the greater Syrian area would probably be more than 50% by far, and then you about 14.5% or so Egyptians, and about almost 4% Morocco. The exceptions, of course, that you would find if you go and visit Dearborn, Michigan, you would find a very significant number of Yemenis, Yemen background, and a lot of them came to Dearborn, Michigan for the auto industry. Now, just some famous Arab Americans you would know, and others you might not. And this is just a sample. By no means this reflects a total or even a significant sample. This is a small sample. The one that probably is the most well-known is Gibran Khalid Gibran. Gibran was a Lebanese American, and many of the quotes, famous quotes that you probably heard in your literature classes or so on, probably some of them came from Gibran. These are some of the things that are often quoted. If you go to the web, you will have hundreds and thousands of the quotes, quotations from Gibran Khalid Gibran, also known in literature and basically in the United States as Khalil Gibran. They take off the first name. He was one of the people who came in the first migration. One of the main books that is known as The Prophet. The Prophet is something that was published in 1923, and it's probably the best selling book of all times, translated to more than 100 languages. And then we have Edward Saeed. Edward Saeed is an intellectual Arab American Palestinian origins. Edward Saeed was a Columbia University professor, and he was known for dismantling what's so-called the theory of Orientalism as being a Western ethnocentric type of theory of how you understand the world, or how you understand the Orient in that sense. And the post-Oriental, post-colonial studies, Edward Saeed is one of the prominent intellectuals in the American educational scene. Of course, to us in Oregon, our well-known and our pride is Governor Victor Atiyeh. Governor Nadia is a Syrian American who also, his parents came in the first wave. He was born in Portland, served in the legislature for about 20 years. And he was also although the head of the Republican Party for many years, he was the one who introduced a lot of environmental and land use type of legislation. He has a lot of accomplishment. The first to appoint women in very high places in his cabinet and in different government structures. And he was elected as governor in 1979 and stayed in the governor's office until 87. And you could actually get a lot of information about Governor Atiye in Oregon because of his strong ability to manage finances and taxes and so on. He's a legend in state government in that sense. Of course, Governor Atiye was the first Arab American governor in the United States. However, John Sununu was also or became a governor of New Hampshire in 83 to 89. He also became chief of staff for the White House under President George Bush, which is Bush the father. And his sons are also John Sununu and Christopher Sununu are also, one of them is a senator and the other one is governor of New Hampshire. Ralph Nader is probably also well-known, the well-known consumer advocate, ran for president a few times. He took on industry, especially auto industry, and for the safety of the consumers. And he did a lot of the stuff. If you're interested in any of the protections for the U.S. consumers, or even some of the advocacy for the environment and so on, you do want to look at the history of Ralph Nader. Our friend Donna Shalala was also DHS secretary, and she was born in Cleveland, and her mother was one of the first Lebanese American to graduate from Ohio State University. That's a well-known thing. Then step away from the old and to the young and new, making waves. Rashida Tlaib is first Palestinian American congresswoman, and is probably making enough waves in Congress to attract a lot of attention. We're, of course, very proud of her accomplishments. And along with that, you have Ilhan Omar, who's a Somali American, and Somalia is in the Horn of Africa, and the Horn of Africa is of an Arab population, Arab country, Somalia. And also another congresswoman who's making impacts and waves. Some of our Arab American scientists, there's a lot of them. However, I'm just gonna include very quickly ones with Nobel Prize winners and so on. Nobel Prize in Chemistry for Dr. Elias James Corey. And I suspect the last name was Corey with an H, or Khouri, which means a priest in Arabic, and he's a Lebanese Orthodox Christian, and is probably thought of as one of the preeminent chemists. And then you have Michael Elias Dibaki, one of the people who came very prominent and was the one who introduced some of the new inventions for the artificial heart. And of course, the so-called the father of modern physics and physical chemistry, and Nobel Prize winner also, Dr. Ahmed Hassan Zuwail, an Egyptian, who have a huge contribution to chemistry and physical biology. and Dr. Huda Yaghi Zoghbi, or Zoghbi, as English would say it, very prominent and important contribution to the understanding of the Tourette syndrome and Parkinson disease and Alzheimer and so on, and a winner of multiple awards and delegation. And then go back slightly to the old, a lot of you might or might not have heard of Paul Anka, songwriter, singer, and an artist that has an impact on many aspects of the glamorous Hollywood and so on. With that, you look at Casey Kasem. Casey Kasem was born in Detroit, Michigan, in the heart of Arab America. Casey Kasem comes from a Druze family, Druze immigrants, Lebanese Druze. And Casey comes from a generation of the old Arab American generations who actually, their parents at the time, and that also is true for Governor Atiyeh, did not want them to learn Arabic. And they didn't want them to learn Arabic because they wanted them to assimilate quickly and don't look any different, because they wanted them to somehow be as white as it could be, so they could be accepted and don't face any discrimination or bias and so on. However, Casey Kasem came in the 1990s. He became very, very active in Arab American causes and promoting Arab American causes. Of course, we stay with the arts. Salma Hayek, of a Lebanese father from also Mexico. We've talked about Shakira before, but just in case, to emphasize the gift of that young woman. And then lately, of course, I would not have known about DJ Khalid or his existence if it wasn't for my kids, who actually told me about that. But obviously, DJ Khalid is a Palestinian American who grew up with music, Arabic music though, from his parents, and was able to influence back the music scene in the United States. And of course, we have our model and beautiful people of Gigi Bella and Anwar Hadid. Although being all supermodels, they are very outspoken in in their environment and in their support for Arab American causes and Palestinians in general. And finally, just to have two other touches that Arab Americans have influence on, Senator George Mitchell, who was the preeminent peace envoy, was the one who engineered the Irish Peace Accord, and also had a very strong contributions to try to put the Middle East Israeli-Palestinian type of deal that did not necessarily work as the Irish conflict did. But his father was adopted by Arab Americans, and then his mother was actually also Lebanese American, and that is something to know for his contributions. And finally, some you might or might not know, but Steve Jobs was born to a Syrian American father and a German mother, but Jobs was also given to adoption, and he did not grow up in that sense. But just because a lot of people thought he was, there is the adoption this way and the adoption the other way that I wanted you to be aware of. And these are the things, that's my presentation, just to give you a flavor of what Arab Americans and how they, some of their contributions, just to whet your appetite. There's probably a lot more to talk about, and we'll take your questions and answers. I we'll give it back to Mohammed and Nadia, but let me see if I could unshare my screen in any way. I should be able.
Thank you, Mazen. That was very insightful slides. I seen the question, a lot of people asking if you can share that with them. Is that going to be available for people to share, or it's going to be only for this presentation?
Oh, sure, we can. I could. Unfortunately, the PowerPoint size of this presentation does not go through email, so we could probably put it on. I'm sure Brianna and Sandra could have a way that we could put it as a PDF file somewhere. And if that doesn't happen, send me an email. I'm sure you can find me in the state system. Many of our audience today is in the state system, in the global state system. Send me an email and I could gladly share it with you.
Mazen, this is Serena, and just make sure we're going to send everything through Brianna, and Brianna will make sure it gets out to everyone.
Awesome.
We'll be able to post it. You're welcome.
That's a good thing to know.
Mazen, can I ask you, well, Mohammed, can I jump in with a question?
Please go ahead. Open floor. But before that, let me tell the audience, you can submit any question you would like in the chat, so we can try to answer them as soon as possible with the time shrinking on us and all of you.
Yeah, great. Mazen, that was a fantastic presentation and very informational. Thank you for sharing all of that. I was pleased to see the 50,000 number for Oregon's Arab American population. I, like you, have just based on the census data, seen numbers between 30 and 40, but understand that those likely are underreported. I wondered if you have a sense of, well, maybe how you got a sense of 50,000, and then also, is there something specific about Oregon that makes it among the fastest growing Arab American populations in the country? Do you have a sense of?
Yeah, I think a lot of the answers that as I said, the census, that the questions they asked, there are a lot of people who would say Arabic or Arab or other Arab and so on, and those were not counted on the numbers, even with that. So unfortunately, your group of ethnicities, Libyans and so on, they would say others, and they were not part of it.
Yeah.
So, and knowing the different population masses around here, as I said, I've been around here for 40 some years, knowing a lot of Arabs and Arab Americans and how the different places, then you have some level of estimate of businesses. You have in Portland about 3 Arab churches, and interestingly, of course, the church, it's an Arab because it talks in Arabic and prays in Arabic and so on. And for, of course, the mosques, most of them are probably not Arab. A lot of them are from either Pakistan or other places. Mm-hmm. So you get the idea, and then you have the old, not old in that sense, but the more prominent second, third generation Arab Americans who don't necessarily answer as Arab Americans, and they're here. So I think even the 50,000 is a conservative number.
I think so too.
Yeah, but because we're tied to numbers and census and so on, we say about 50,000 at least. And the last thing of your question, that there was and I'd have to give Oregon the credit, a large acceptance of a lot of refugees that came in the last 10 years or so. So Oregon accepted something in the neighborhood of about 4,000 Syrian refugees, probably a similar number with Iraqi refugees. So the refugees community kind of became a big part of the community, and that's why the growth became very, very fast and explosive. Well, not explosive, but fast enough. And
Yeah.
we're of course happy to see it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Pleasure.
This is Serena. I'm going to interrupt. I just want to tell, I know there were some hands raised, but if anyone can put their questions in the questions and answers, Mohammed will get to them at the end of the Nadia's presentation, because we can't get to all the raised hands. There's over 300 folks on the call, and we're excited that you all are here, but we have to follow the process. Otherwise, we'll get overwhelmed. And so thank you. Just go ahead.
I see some questions in the conversation, the Q&A. Is that something everybody sees, or is it only me seeing them?
Yeah, no, we all see that. I'm not sure, Mohammed, do you want to facilitate Q&A or next here?
Definitely. First, do you have a Nadia presentation?
I do not have a presentation.
Okay, that's why I was confused.
Run of shows. I'm happy to say more about ACO if people are interested, but I don't think a presentation was on the agenda.
So I heard on the side some people that question has been disabled for them, but I see some question coming through. I'm not sure, Brian, if there's some technical difficulty to some attendees or not. But I'll pick some of the question because there's a lot showing up. And one of the question is, hi there. So are Arabic people who live on the African continent Arabic or African? Or perhaps I'm conflating ethnicity and country of origin.
Well, through the progress of history and culture and so on, the Arab people are, as I said, mostly live on that swath of land that spans North Africa and the Mediterranean east or the East Mediterranean part of Asia. So the North African populations are Arab population, but they are also African population. They are North African population. There is no conflict between being an Arab and African. Actually, the majority of Arabs are Africans. So you would have about 58% of Arabs are Africans or live in Africa. And remember, Egypt is the heaviest weight of the Arab countries, which is also in North Africa. Egypt counts about 90-some million people. And that's where the heaviest amounts and numbers and the vastest areas of land are North Africa. And we have no problems with, identifying in both ways.
Thank you.
Nadia, you come from North African background too, right? So
yeah,
background.
Yeah, and I guess I always, I think you're right. I think people say I'm North African or my family's North African or Arab heritage, and I think people sort of use it interchangeably, and I don't really think twice about it, although there may be a more correct way to say it.
Yeah.
Next question. It's a little bit tricky, but we'll see who can answer it. So I understand the name Omar is popular in Central America and Latin America countries. Is this an Arab name? Did that happen perhaps because of the immigration of Arab to Central and South America?
Well, it could be. I actually looked into this, and I can't say for sure. However, you have to remember, Arabic is a very ancient language. It's a few thousand years, and it has moved. And remember, Arabs also lived and controlled the Iberian Peninsula, or what's today is Spain, for a long time, and the Spanish movement to Central and South America was there. So that I'm sure there is a relationship with that. So Omar, you're correct, and probably most likely been originated from Arabic I don't know if it signifies today anybody's named Omar has an Arabic lineage to them, but it's a beautiful name, regardless of how you go with it.
Sure. Next question. How can we get connected with and/or advocate for the Arab community across Oregon?
That's Nadia's question.
If I can jump in there, yeah. I think I wish there were more organizations through which you could do that, but I think there are some. ACO is one of them. We are statewide and exist as a non-religious cultural organization that works to get connected with the community and provide community support in whatever way, in whatever the need demands. Obviously, over the past couple of years, that's changed a lot as we've all been through the pandemic together. I'd say you feel free to reach out to ACO. You can visit our website at aacco.org or send us a message at info@aco.org, and we can get you connected. We have programs that are right now still mostly virtual, but some in person, and our board is entirely Portland based, unfortunately. So a lot of in-person events in Portland, but we're trying to connect with folks and members of our community in Central Oregon and Southern Oregon as well. And so we're sort of working to broaden that network. I'd say for those who are familiar with IRCO, they have another nonprofit. They have an Africa House and a Mideast House, and programs that also exist to serve Arab American communities. And so that's another good organization to connect with. And they are, like us, always looking for community volunteers of any kind. In Portland, ACO hosts annually an Arab festival, and that's open to anyone in the community. In fact, I think most of our attendees are usually non-Arab American community members. But that's a chance also to connect with organizations, with small businesses, with arts, culture, music, dancing, food, you name it. And it will be live or in person again this fall down at Oaks Park in Portland. So those are a couple of ways. I noticed a question in the chat about getting involved with and supporting K through 12 students too. And there are a few, Lincoln High School is one that comes to mind that has a fairly robust Arab program for students and Arab classes and cultural opportunities for students. Anyone can participate in that. And then there are other K through 6 or K through high school schools that have more significant Arab populations. And feel free to, I won't name all those schools because I would need to look at which ones are likely, but you can feel free to contact me or anyone at ACO, and we can connect you with with the school systems as well, because there is a need for support there too.
Another question. What advice do you have for fellow Oregonians who are trying to learn about and engage with the Arab American culture? What advice do you have for future Arab American moving to or with hopes for moving to Oregon?
Well, I will give Nadia a shot at this again, but Oregon is a wonderful place. It has a level of acceptance, and it's a place where there is a sizable Arab American diverse community that you could probably find everything that you want to find in stores, in restaurants, in different places. You would find university professors, you would find doctors, you would find lawyers, you'd find business people, you would find common worker folks, you would find government employees like us. It is a nice and hospitable place to come to if you're thinking of moving and ditching your tent, if you will, and pitching your in Oregon.
I wish there was I've always wished there was some sort of list or directory for Arab Americans who come to Oregon and are in need of an Arabic speaking attorney or an Arabic speaking notary or a doctor or something like that. And I don't know that list exists necessarily, but there certainly are. I mean, the community is robust, as Mazen said, and I think connecting with, it's robust and it's supportive. So I think that those people are out there and people are ready to help. And so if you contact someone like ACO or IRCO or MET, the Muslim Educational Trust, the people within those organizations will certainly connect you with who you need. And in terms of cultural involvement, I'll shamelessly put another plug in for the Arab Festival. So because if you're in the Portland area, I think that's a great way to get exposed to and learn about all diverse facets of Arab culture. Oregon does have, and the Arab world is a very diverse place. And we have people from all over it in Portland, although I think it is Levant probably heavy, but there are people from everywhere, and the festival really brings them together in a way that's, I think, unique.
I think, Nadia, this is, we have our next task in front of us, I guess. That's the kind of thing that we're learning here.
Another question. Do you know, Nadia, when is the festival will be this year?
I do. It's the Sunday of Labor Day weekend.
Sunday of Labor Day weekend. You heard that? There's going to be a lot of food.
Down at
I'm
Oaks
hungry.
Park on the Willamette. Lots of food, lots of dubke, lots of music, lots of art, and it's free.
Yes. Another question from the audience. Thank you so much. What is one book or website would you recommend to continue to learn more about Arab American culture and community?
Well, there are plenty of them. There is of course, the different organizations for different ways of presenting. The Arab American Foundation is a website that actually deals with Arab American type of festivals, cultural events, and so on. The ADC, or what's so-called Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee, is a very deep-rooted type of civil rights organization that defends the rights and the interests of Arab Americans in general. ADC has been there for a very long time. The Arab American Institute is also an organization that tries to get Arab Americans involved in the political process. There's the Arab American University graduates, and there's several other special organizations for example, areas of the Middle East. There are a lot of Palestinian and Palestine Legal, Americans United for Palestinian Human Rights. There are so many civil and human rights organizations, as well as legal organization and cultural organization. All of these are websites that you could refer to or get involved with, and I do encourage everybody to actually get involved and touch and have communications with your Arab American neighbor or friend or colleague and so on. And we really do appreciate that type of connection that is on the human level and on respect level, and away from the stereotypes and the difficult politics that different people get influenced by.
Another question. There's a lot of questions, but I'm trying to go through them as much as possible. So how would you recommend Middle Eastern food? I think my answer to that is Yelp. Look online. There's a lot of Middle Eastern restaurants around here in Oregon. I can't recommend one because I'll be biased, or it might be a friend. So look at Yelp, see the reviews, let the audience tell you who's the best.
Yeah, and we're blessed with a lot of good restaurants around town, and they come from different places. There's a lot of course, of Lebanese and other type of Mediterranean or Eastern Mediterranean. Now there's a lot of Iraqi restaurants, and in the last 5 years, there are about 5 different Iraqi restaurants. There is Moroccan restaurants, and we have in town somewhere in the neighborhood about 32 different restaurants of Arab food and different Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean. That's where the most Arabic food comes from, and I really encourage you, as Muhammad said, look at them. Don't try them all one by one and make your judgment.
Yes, and let us know.
Yeah.
There's also some lovely Middle Eastern or Arab markets too. Maybe not be a restaurant, but you can get you can just go to the market and pick up what you want. Some prepared, some prepared, otherwise, some not. But I think there's lovely markets that you could Yelp also. Thank you, Mohammed. That's a good strategy.
Another question: what's the most spoken Arabic dialect in Oregon? That's a tough one.
Well, it goes back to the same distribution of the different population. Again, Arab in Oregon still is true. 1 out of 2, at least, if not more, of Arab Americans you would meet is either from the Levant area or the greater Syrian area. That's Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. So that Levantian dialect is common, and even within that, there is still variations of it. But that probably is the most spoken around. The interesting thing about it is any dialect of Arabic that you speak is almost understood by the rest of the Arabic speakers. So if you have any interest or intention to learn spoken Arabic, because sometimes people don't learn the language but learn the spoken Arabic, just go for it. We will understand you, and we would love to hear you speak Arabic.
Another question regarding food: what is the food item that you miss the most from your home country?
Oh, let me tell you. Of course, the things that are most famous in the United States, of course, you'd have the falafel and the hummus and the fava beans or the fool, and of course, hummus comes in different varieties, different plates. Fatted hummus, sabbahan, and you have that, and then the biggest rice and lamb type of food. There is the Mediterranean or the Middle Eastern, the Lebanese, Levantian kitchen is really a very sophisticated kitchen. And sophistication is primarily measured in that sense of how many preliminary steps you have to go through before you produce a meal. So you're just not going to whip something up in an hour, and unless it's a very quick meal. But you could go to a restaurant and get shawarma sandwich and so on. Shawarma sandwich takes about 2 days of preparation for the meat to cure and so on. And the grape leaves, for example, the Arab grape leaves, you have to pick the leaves, you have to boil them, so it's a process that takes multiple steps, sometimes spans more than a few days. And that's how sophisticated the kitchen or the cuisine is. I miss all of that, but nowadays, as I said, we're blessed with a lot of that happening around here. However, I'm biased. I'm one of the people who don't like falafel, believe it or not. So sorry about that. Some of my Arab friends and family are shocked and abhorred that I don't like falafel, but I'm sure it's a great thing.
I am getting hungry. It's Ramadan, guys, and your question for food is just make my tummy start reacting to it. So just bear with me. Another question. Do you think Dearborn or Arab American Museum would be willing to share their collection through the country like a traveling museum?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, I think they do. That's a great question and something that I've already made a note about. We're looking into traveling exhibits from a couple of other locations to bring for ACO to host next year. So we'll also ask the museum in Dearborn what they can bring to us.
Wonderful.
Perfect. There's a lot of questions. Do you guys see any question that flirt with you? You want to pick it and answer it? Here's another question. Can you mention the various languages used by Arabs?
Well, Arabic is the center or the central axiom, if you will, of the Arab culture. So Arabic is the language. Dialects are regional, so you have different ways of speaking. It is a lot of dialects is the same way you would have dialects in English, Australian English, British English, New Zealand English. However, the dialects within Arabic, because these regions have been around a lot longer, many more hundreds and thousands of years, the dialects are a lot more established. Sometimes it takes a while before the person from one dialect to the other, that they actually establish familiarity with it before they're able to converse fluently. There are, however, within the Arab world, there do live minorities of people who speak other languages. A lot of those languages are still Semitic languages, such as Chaldean, Aramaic, Assyrian, Kurdish, and so on. So a lot of those are have similar origins, and therefore Arabic languages have borrowed a lot from those languages and vice versa. So there is still a very easy way of communication. Arabic is the most well spoken, and Arabs in general. Just to bring you back to the presentation that we did, we said there's 22 Arab states. Arabs in general mostly think of the Arab world as eventually one entity. So you are talking about the United States of Arab countries, if you will. That's how it is seen. So United States is 50 independent states, and Arabs, mostly they think of the Arab world in a similar arrangement that is probably have not been established yet, but somehow with some time it is almost eventual, because this separation between the different states in a very deep socio-political, geographical, or geopolitical borders is just something that is less than 60 or 70-year-old establishments. So basically, a lot of the Arabs and Arab population think of that region, the 5 million square mile or the 300 million people, as eventual one federation type of entity that they will somehow merge to with time.
And I'm combining two questions here. Is the written language differ from country to country, even if pronounced similarly?
I'm sorry, the written language? There is an advantage to the written language. The written Arabic is there was the new classical written Arabic. This is what we call the newspaper or the book type of Arabic. Of course, the old or the more 500-600-year-old Arabic, we can still read it and understand it, but it's not written in the same way. So since the outset of the 1900s, a new group of scholars came out and kind of modernized the Arab written word, in a sense that everybody could actually now, across all the 22 nations, almost write in the same way. It is spoken differently, but the written language is all universal, and that has been an accomplishment for the modern classical New Arabic, and that is taught in school or in schools for everybody's or all school systems within the Arab world. So that kind of reinforces the commonality and the ease of understanding in the language, at least in the written word.
I think one last question before we hand it over to Brianna. What is the challenges Arab American facing in the US?
Well, there are many challenges. Of course, a lot of the challenges that we live through, of course, they have always been the stereotypes that our Arabs have to deal with, and all the issues that came out with, of course, the Arab-Israeli conflict and the Palestinian type of issues have always been, prominent and make these important generalization, because the American media and the political scene have not been impartial in this, and had, in a way, had sides. So the stereotypes of, first of all, the old stereotypes that you find in Hollywood, the camels and the tents and the harem girls dancing, and that type of mystic Orientalist type of stereotype has always been a problem. And then came at the time where, with the political conflicts and the wars, as the terrorist and the uncivilized type of issues and problems and manifestations. And these today are still some of the issues that we face all the time. Even our, the one elected officials, the young and upcoming officials that I've shown you in the presentation, like Rashida Talib and Ilhan Omar, they're all often ostracized as terrorist promoting and so on. I mean, even at that level, and they're demonized for what they say and for their support of the Palestinian cause, or for trying to bring human rights equality into the different type of understanding. And they have suffered tremendously through those attacks. And probably some of you who listen to the different politics and different political view could actually, you can Google it and see the level of attacks that these young professional upcoming politicians are facing almost every day. And you could measure that to all the population that we live with.
I think if I can add to that, Mohammed,
Please do.
ACO sees the discrimination that you just described and the hate, for lack of a better word, amongst members of even the Oregon community, who are, as we mentioned earlier, very welcoming and tolerant and friendly communities. But we see just in our work, discrimination in the doctor's office, or finding a lawyer, or going to the grocery store. I mean, it's day-to-day interactions where people suffer significant discriminations, even in your own community. So we certainly see that here, and just educate. That's why ACO seeks, I think, largely to educate and bring together members of the community, so that we can, explain to everybody and teach everyone what our culture is about, and who your neighbors are, because I think that's when you start becoming a little bit more tolerant for the people that you might see as other in some way. So I just want to highlight that that's in your own community every day, and it's something that our community experiences every day. And so just learning more and becoming more aware of who we are and what we're about is one thing that you can do.
Thank you, Nadia. And I think to bring awareness to what's Arab feel and the stereotypes, if you read Edward Said book, Orientalism, I think this is a great source to start with.
Yes, thank you, Mazen and Mohammed and Nadia. I think this was a really important question to end on. I just would like to say I am honored to have you three with us on this panel. I think that this was a really great kickoff for us honoring our office, honoring National Arab American Heritage Month. I'm also proud to say that Governor Kate Brown signed House Bill 2914 last year in proclaiming that April be Arab American Heritage Month. And so I am very proud of that and proud that our office will continue to honor this month as National Arab American Heritage Month. Thank you all to the attendees who have come to this event. In closing, we're going to share a beautiful poem by Mohammed Bader with Multnomah County. And I again want to thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Mohammed, Nadia, Mazen. It was an honor to have you. So I'm going to share that poetry now.
And Nadia, can you send us your phone number too? We didn't have it.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Wanted to get that in.
And may I suggest that some of these questions that we were not answered, if you just load them up, we could probably send an answer with time. We're more than happy to do that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed Bader. I was asked to read a poem for you all. I'll be reading a poem in celebration of Arab American Heritage Month. I am an Arab American who immigrated to the US in 1986, and I so much appreciate the effort that the state and the governor and legislators put into passing the House bill that made Arab American Heritage Month an annual event in the state of Oregon. As an immigrant, and many immigrants do this, you love the country you come in, you enjoy the people, but also you remember your homeland. And so I wrote this poem as I was remembering my own homeland. I'll read it in Arabic, and hopefully I will have time to read it in English too. لا تسألني عن اسمي وعنواني فالليل والنجم إخواني وكواكب الدنيا ترافقني ومشيئة الله ترعاني. سألت الليل بجناحيه أن يطويني والنجم أرشدني إلى خلد بستاني. أنا أحمد العربي أبحث عن بيت وعنوان، وأبحث عن ظل وبستان، وأبحث عن خل وإنسان، وأطارد خلف جواز السفر لأبرر فيه إنسانيتي لظلامي. واتخذت من الغربة ملجئا لأحبابي وكياني، وهمت غريبا وحيدا أواري في الغربة آلامي وأحزاني. أنا أحمد العربي، لا تسألني عن اسمي وعنواني فالليل منزلي والنجم مصباحي ولي في الشرق موطن يناديني كل صباحي. Okay, this is the same poem now. I call it in English Ahmad the Arab, or also it's called Don't Ask Me About My Name and Address. Don't ask me about my name and address, for the night and the stars are my brothers and sisters, and the planets of the world are my companions, and the will of God protects me. I have lost my family and friends and wandered weary in this foreign land. I have asked the night to hold me beneath its wings, and the stars guided me to my eternal garden. I am Ahmed, the Arab. I'm looking for a shade in the garden. I'm searching for a home and an address, and I search for a friend and a human. And I search for identity and citizenship, and I chase after a passport to justify in it my humanity to those who oppress me. And I have taken from this foreign land a shelter to my children, to my beloved, and to myself. And I wandered far away, stranger in a strange land, burying my pain and sorrow in this huge distance. Do not ask me about my name and address, for the night is my house, and the stars are my lanterns. And back east, I have a home that calls me every morning. Thank you very much, and if you liked it, I have written this book called The Traveler. Most of my poetry is and there you also can find my poetry on medium.com under the name The Arabian Traveler. Have a nice day.
Thank you all. Serena, the Chief Cultural Change Officer for the state of Oregon. I just want to say thank you. This was amazing. I loved learning, listening, and hearing all that you had to say. And I look forward to doing this more often than just once a year. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your life. Thank you for sharing your kind words. Thank you for sharing the history and the culture. There's just not enough thank yous to say. This was just truly amazing. And the words that folks are saying in the emails that I've gotten so far, this is just great. So again, thank you. Have a great week and have a great day, the rest of your day.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.